I want to give a detailed guide on how Forsburn's gimmick works, and how to best manage its resources. This guide is also useful if you're playing against Forsburn, and you don't understand how he works. This is the demo build, and most likely the launch patch of the game, so it might have some things change after some months have passed, so it might become outdated if you're watching this video in the near future. His gimmick revolves around his ability to deceive and trick the opponent, thanks to how he interacts with smoke clouds and with his summonable clone. Playing Forsburn well requires you to understand his combo structure, outspace your opponent with his disjoints, and to be able to manage his resources, namely keeping track of the location of yourself and your clone while in the smoke or not. You also need to keep track of how many smoke clouds you have consumed, and finally you have to make the correct decisions in regards to his smoke charges and specials. For example, if it's better to fully charge yourself with 3 stacks, or to hold on that idea for a bit to take advantage of his smoke clouds and clone. There are 3 ways to create smoke clouds. The first one is with his 4 tilt. It creates just one smoke cloud and he has a hitbox in front of him. The second one is with Forsburn's special pummel, which puts smoke clouds around the opponent for around 2 seconds, even after throwing them in whatever direction. Not very consistent, since you need to win the pummel coin flip, but it's definitely not useless either. The third way is the most useful one in neutral. It is his neutral special, called Smoke Spewer. It spews smoke clouds that follow him around for a little bit more than 2 seconds. After nearly reaching the 2-second mark, you become totally invisible in the smoke. Your opponent does not turn invisible in the smoke cloud. Unless your opponent is playing Forsburn too, in which case both players share the ability to interact with each other's smoke, like being able to consume your opponent's smoke, or teleporting into it, for example. Inside the smoke cloud, you stay invisible until you decide to use an attack, any special that is not side special, or taunt. You'll stay invisible when pressing side special in the smoke, but you'll still produce sound effects, since smoke doesn't block sounds. You can use up special to teleport into a smoke cloud once, without activating the exploding hitbox at the end of the animation. All these mechanics are obviously useful for his neutral, since when you put it all together, you can easily control the stage and the pace of the match. You can, for example, teleport to smoke clouds to reposition yourself and to give you a chance to sneakily activate your side special. Moreover, it's also fantastic for recovering, since you can get one free teleport, which may help you recover from far away, and helps you mix up your recovery by delaying it. If you teleport into the smoke clouds more than once in succession, or without touching the ground, you won't teleport seamlessly into the smoke. Instead, you'll end the teleport with a normal exploding animation at the end, which has recovery frames and leaves you in freefall in the air. The only way for the smoke clouds to disappear is for the opponent to hit them directly. When you consume a total of 3 stacks of smoke, which I'll be explaining later in more detail. Or when you lose a stock. His side special is called Decoy. You summon a clone of yourself that follows the opponent by default. You can decide from what side your clone spawns. If you side special to the right, the clone spawns on your left, and vice versa. You have control over whether you want the clone to follow the opponent, or if you want it to run away from them. By default, it is set to run after the opponent, but if you press neutral special, it starts running away from them. If you press it one more time, it goes back to chasing the opponent. The clone can't use any defensive options. It can't grab the opponent, nor can it grab the ledge. The clone doesn't attack by itself, but you can detonate it by pressing down special. You cannot detonate the clone when using a defensive option, like shielding, rolling, or spot dodging. If the clone gets hit by any direct attack, it disappears, turning himself into a smoke cloud. Sometimes it doesn't, but I think that's just a bug right now. You can also destroy the clone by hitting the real Forsburn. The clone doesn't disappear with indirect damage, like with Aether's fire damage over time. After the clone gets detonated, you have a little bit less than 2 seconds to resummon another clone again. But if it gets destroyed by your opponent, then the clone cooldown increases to around a second longer. If you use Decoy off stage, the clone will jump after being spawned. But if you hold the special button, the clone will fall down without jumping until you let go of it. This is useful to edgeguard your opponent, when they're below you and near the wall. The clone does not share the same number of jumps you currently have available, meaning that if you used all your jumps and you use Decoy, the clone will be able to jump in the air. Shrewd opponents might use this information to figure out who the real Forsburn is, so be careful. Decoy is a very useful tool for Forsburn's neutral, because you can use him as a meat shield when approaching and to trick the opponent over who the real one is. You can use the detonation of the clone for punishes and combos. If you press side special again after using Decoy, your clone tosses you forward. When your clone has already been summoned, it will abandon what it was doing and return to you immediately so it can toss you. This doesn't work well off stage when your clone is already on stage, since it's too slow to get you. While this move is useless on stage because of its slow startup and recovery, and pitiable damage and knockback, it is a great tool when recovering off stage. The toss doesn't leave you in freefall. Suffice to say, you can wall jump after using it. Once you consume 3 stacks of smoke, you become fully charged and some things change. You can see that you're fully charged once your body changes color. Every smoke cloud that existed before the 3rd consume disappears from the screen. You're no longer able to create smoke clouds from your opponent after a special pummel. Every single one of your specials have their properties change, except Up Special, which stays the same. Your Down Special turns into Combust. Combust is a high knockback explosion that has a hitbox that covers around his body. Because of its power and hitbox, it is a very reliable kill move that can be done raw or kill confirmed through stray hits like down tilt or fair. Being fully charged when your opponent is at a high percent is a great way to pressure them, since they don't want to get hit by the deadly explosion that is Combust. The trade-off, of course, is that you can't have smoke on screen when you're fully charged, so you have to decide between one or the other. Once you use Combust, you lose all your smoke stacks, and your Down Special turns into Consume again. Obviously, this means you can go back to creating smoke clouds. When fully charged, Neutral Special spews many smoke clouds instantaneously around Forsburn. This can be useful when recovering, since you can use the newly summoned smoke clouds to teleport and create a clone. Or you can use it to mix up the timing of your Decoy toss. Having smoke clouds off stage is great for Forsburn, since it gives him more flexibility when recovering. Most characters don't have a non-committal way to clear the smoke off stage, and some of them don't even have a projectile to throw out to clear the smoke, like Claren for example.
Amateur.
When fully charged, his side special turns into what I colloquially call Super Decoy. I don't know if there's an official name for it, so apologies for that. Super Decoy summons a super clone that maintains the same properties as his regular clone, along with some new changes. The super clone will approach the opponent and attack automatically and randomly at a 2-second interval or more, never less than that. But you can also manually make the clone attack by pressing the special button again. Although you can't decide on the clone's specific attacks, so you'll just throw random attacks on command. This means that you can't order your clone to run away from the opponent anymore when pressing the special button. You can order the clone to attack when you're doing a defensive option, namely during your spot dodge, roll, and air dodge. You're also able to order the clone to attack while the real one is in hit stun. If you get grabbed by the opponent, the clone might save you with one of his random attacks. You can't detonate the clone in either of the previous situations, however. While it doesn't get destroyed when the opponent hits the real Forsburn, the clone disappears after getting hit once by direct damage, which is a huge weakness, making this a very unreliable option to use when fully charged. When this clone gets destroyed, it spawns more smoke clouds than the regular clone. As Forsburn, how should I manage my smoke stacks? The best strategy, which was the same in Rivals 1, is to keep yourself at 2 stacks during a stock and inhale the third one when you need to go for the kill. Smoke clouds are crucial to Forsburn's neutral, but not necessarily to score a KO. Combust is better for that. When it comes to the timing of the third consume, there might be other factors to consider other than killing power. Do you need smokes and clones to approach a specific opponent or matchup? Should you fully charge and have a better recovery after being knocked off stage? The more you play Forsburn, the better you get a sense of these things. Against Forsburn, how do I deal with smoke? Extinguish it as much as you can. I hope I was able to give you an idea of how useful smoke clouds are for Forsburn. Don't let him get away with having so much smoke on stage. Don't worry too much about the smoke off stage unless you have a good way of dealing with it. Keep track of Forsburn first, and worry about smoke clouds when it starts getting overwhelming. Luckily, you can just one-hit it to put it away. Against Forsburn, how do you distinguish between the real Forsburn and the fake one? How do I deal with a clone? You can't. Or rather, you shouldn't worry too much about that. There are tells, like the fact that the clone never wave dashes or uses any defensive option. I also already mentioned some particularities that the clone does, but I don't think that's the point when dealing with it. You should always keep yourself on the move, since all the clone does by itself is approach you, and you should treat the clone the same way you would treat the real one. Don't tunnel vision into discovering who the real one is and who the clone is. Focus on hitting both without dwelling on either. That being said, the most important thing about the clone is to be able to see Forsburn summoning him, so you know that there's a clone on the loose. Which goes back to the advice of destroying as many smoke clouds as you can to avoid Forsburn getting a sneaky clone summon in the smoke. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped you understand Forsburn's mechanics better. If I forgot something important that I should have mentioned, please let me know in the comments. I played Forsburn in Rivals 1 for years, but I'm bound to get something wrong in this new game, so don't hesitate to call me out. Have fun out there playing Forsburn, or playing against him, I suppose.